Hi, I'm Melanie Neutz. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky, but now I live in Sellersburg, Indiana. I am a full-time hairdresser. I also work two other part-time jobs. I do hair for weddings, and I also work for a company called Beam Suntory. Um, and then I also do bodybuilding as well.
From the outside looking in, I think a lot of people see somebody into fitness as like that's who they are. That's, they're a
Right.
bodybuilder or they're a person, they're a gym rat or whatever. And also a lot of times, sometimes we get stuck like as a competitor, talking to different competitors. I hear so much about like, what am I going to do? Kind of like, once this is over and how am I going to transition to the next part of my life. But it's cool to hear you kind of have some stuff going on already and you don't
Yeah, for
necessarily have
sure.
those worries.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's actually kind of interesting because a lot of people in like the beauty industry, as being like a hairdresser, cosmetologist, esthetician, a lot of them are kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum where they don't really care about their health and well-being. So it's kind of interesting that I'm in that, field, and I do have that aspect of being into fitness. It's kind of like, I don't want to say opposites, but you don't see a lot of them like that.
Right. So how did you get into fitness?
So that is actually kind of interesting. I've always played sports all my life. Like I grew up playing softball, and then in high school I did softball, volleyball, cross country, and lacrosse. And I've always played a bunch of sports, and um, I've always loved doing it. So I think like jumping into bodybuilding, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was like it's easier if you're an athlete prior to that. Now, I think growing up, I didn't really know what bodybuilding was. Like it's kind of like a hidden sport, I want to say. Like not a lot of people know about it unless you're in it or unless you know somebody in it. But I remember doing a photo shoot. I started doing photo shoots, and I did a photo shoot, and there was this girl that was there, and she looked like amazing. Like she had like nice full shoulders. She had like abs. And I was like, what in the world is she doing? I got to do whatever she's doing. So I looked her up on Instagram and saw that she did bodybuilding. She did the bikini division. And then I looked at who her coach was. I reached out to her coach. I literally hired her coach and joined the gym like within that same week. And then 3 months later, stepped on stage.
Nice. That's pretty cool to kind of have that smooth transition like that. You mentioned that you were from Louisville originally. I'm also from here. I'm still here. I know there's a lot of like high school sports are pretty big here. There's not a pro team, so high school and colleges are pretty big. Did you
Mhm.
have any experience like in a weight room during high school?
It's so funny because I actually took weightlifting class in high school, but I took it because when you play sports in school, when you go to like the gym class and like if you have a game that day, you're exempt from doing any of the gym stuff. So I played softball, volleyball, lacrosse, and I ran cross country. So I played four sports in high school. So every day there was some type of a game or race or something like that. So I made sure I had gym. Um, in my school day just to make sure that like I could literally just sit down and chill. Like that was the class that I like did all my homework, or I just like I literally would lay on the bench and chill, and they would say, "Today we're doing back and by," and I'd say, "I have a game today, so I'm not doing it." So it's kind of funny, but I do remember them teaching us like how to do proper movements and stuff like that. And it was funny because when I got into bodybuilding 5 or so years later, I was like, I remember doing all of these. Well, at least I was supposed to do all of these in high school, but it's funny that I like avoided doing them then, and then now I'm doing them now.
Yeah, it is. It's cool how like sometimes in life we might like meet something at the wrong time. We don't always the timing doesn't always line up for whenever that first initial connection happens. But whenever you
Right.
did get into the weightlifting, how did that kind of like how did you feel about it at first?
I didn't feel weird about it. I think like I knew what it was, mostly like what I wanted to look like. And it was so interesting because when now, like 2.5 years after starting, training as a bodybuilder, I realized like you can't choose what you look like at any given time. If you have to build, you have to build. If you have to cut, you have to cut, and you can't pick and choose. So that was interesting. But I think initially getting into the gym, it wasn't like weird. I think before, like I always had like this. predisposition that weightlifting automatically made you bulky. And then I quickly learned that that was not the case. But I was definitely the type of gym goer. Like when I first joined the gym, I didn't know anything about the gym. So when I walked in there and I had my program that my coach gave me, I would go up to somebody and be like, oh, they probably know what they're doing. And I would go up to them and be like, okay, this says RDL. I have no idea what that is. Can you show me how to do it? And even if it was something that I knew, like obviously I know what a squat was, but like I didn't know like proper form. So I would make sure I would go up to somebody and make sure that I was doing it right, or somebody could assist me. Like I had no fears of the gym or and asking people for help. And I actually think that people like when you ask them for help because they're like, oh, it looks like I know what I'm doing. Okay, that's cool. So no, it wasn't I don't think that I had any fears or anything like that initially getting to the gym.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Was there any kind of fears, or was there any kind of like any challenges you had to overcome when it comes to like the initial stages of fitness or bodybuilding?
For sure. Yeah. I think that in the beginning, as far as like the nutrition side of it, um, prior to me bodybuilding, I kind of just ate whatever I wanted. Like if I wanted cookies for breakfast or ice cream, like I would do it. Like I didn't have any type of diet, or like I had no motivation to eat healthy or anything like that. I would carry around cereal boxes with me everywhere I went. So when I started bodybuilding, it was not only cut all that stuff out. I had to like cut out all the sugar, and I had to stay to a strict meal plan. And then, whenever I was like prepping for a show, it's obviously like you have to stick to exactly what the meal plan is. So when I started out, like I didn't cheat on anything, but I think that the hunger was like a struggle. And then I think eating the foods was a struggle. I really did not like eating chicken, hated egg whites. Every single time I would eat it, I would hold my nose so I didn't have to taste it, and like down water so I didn't have to taste it. And eventually, like I overcame that because eventually, like after your body is tasting something for so long, it only craves that. So like obviously now like I eat my food and I love every single meal that I eat. But initially it probably took me, I want to say almost a year to actually get used to the food. And then as far as the training, like I never really went to the gym like it wasn't really my outlet. It was like I went there for a goal, like I had a purpose, and it was to progress and be better and to do better for myself every day. But it wasn't necessarily like my outlet, or, oh, I had a bad day, I'm going to go take it out at the gym. That wasn't really my thing. So I think it wasn't like falling in love with the gym and like working out and stuff like that. It was more so for like the goal of getting on stage.
Does it feel more like that now, or is it still that only that goal oriented feeling when you go into the
It,
gym?
it's still kind of that goal. And I think that my love for bodybuilding is so strong that I enjoy going to the gym because I know I'm going to progress um, even more and get on stage and be better. Like I live for this stage. I just love it. Getting up there is like the most magical feeling. So knowing that I'm going to look better and do better and get a better placing possibly just from working today and tomorrow and the next day, it's like super motivating, and it's really exciting for me. But as far as like the actual training, if I didn't have a show in mind like in the future, it wouldn't be as exciting for me.
I think that's a hard part for people to grasp, is that like each time you do a rep, each set, each workout that you do, each day you go in there, you actually are progressing. And I think
Yeah.
whenever you first start out, that's such a hard idea because you don't see it right away. And when you first started bodybuilding, did you feel like when you heard about it and you were excited about it that you almost had to like do competitions as well to stay kind of like motivated to do it? Or could you, ever see yourself just like staying motivated by just doing the bodybuilding style training and not doing the competitions?
I think it's both. So I think that having like once you get done with the show, I always have the next show in mind. Like I'll always ask my coach, okay, when's the next one? Because I need to know what my next goal is. Like my next goal is at arm's reach, whether it's a year away or 2 days away. It's like right there, and like I know that I need to do this every single day to make sure that I do better for the next show. So yeah, my next show is like my goal, and it's super motivating for me. But if I didn't have that, I'd also have like personal goals. Like I'd probably still make other goals like, oh, I will personally, I would like to build this more. So I'd probably train this and make sure, I do that. I think I would train a lot differently. I'd probably do things a lot differently if I was not a bodybuilder. But obviously, like when you are a bodybuilder, you can't really pick and choose. Like if, shoulders are probably my favorite thing to train, and I do need to build my shoulders, but some things that I need to build, like I need to do more of, and it's not as much shoulders, and I can't really pick and choose that. That's kind of what I need for the sport. So I think if I didn't do the sport, I would still train and I would still have small goals ahead, but they wouldn't be the same ones necessarily.
Yeah, it kind of keeps you more honest, I think, with your training when you have some type of performance to do, because it's like, okay, I love to train this body part, but maybe sometimes this other body part needs some attention, and if I don't
Yeah.
have any reason to give it attention, sometimes it does fall by the wayside. And whenever you
Right.
first got like your first competition was coming up, how did you kind of like respond emotionally and kind of like mentally to that kind of new environment, new experience?
So I think it was interesting because when I was, going to the gym, my very first show was in Louisville, Kentucky, which is where I was training. And the gym that I trained at, it was a gym that had a lot of other bodybuilders there. And for that show in Louisville, it was very common that people in Louisville did the show in Louisville. So you would see people in the morning, like a lot of people are like sunken in face. Like you could tell who was in prep at that time. So it was interesting, like before I got into it, like all the things that other bodybuilders said about bodybuilding, about prepping, and how like difficult it was and how hard it was and how draining. And I was like, oh man, like trying to mentally prepare myself for this. I don't know about all this. Like I've never even stepped on stage. I don't even know if I'm gonna love it or whatever. But I was like, I'm gonna try it because what's it gonna hurt? If I don't like it, I'm just not gonna do it again. So I think after getting into prep and as I'm doing it, I was like waiting for this part, like how people were over exaggerating. Like, not that it wasn't hard, but my first prep was not as hard as what people made it seem. I think coming from an athletic background, I had an okay shape to like jump into a show, not make it too awfully difficult. Um, but then again, every single prep is different. But for my first one, I think I was like waiting and waiting and waiting for it to like actually get to that point where it was as hard as everyone was saying it was. And I was like, that wasn't bad. Like I could have done a lot worse. I think that people just love to complain about it, but you also have to realize that you chose to do it. So don't complain too much about it.
Everybody has
Right.
like such a weird experience and like perspective with the world when it comes like how they perceive in a situation. And yeah, I think like being in sports kind of does prepare you for like being uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and simply like any kind of fitness I think does that. It's so cool how like getting your heart rate up, sweating, breathing hard, it kind of just makes other situations in life, other harder situations, seem less intimidating. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
kind of didn't even realize that was considered challenging because I'm just so used to like challenging myself on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think people like to over exaggerate a lot of situations. I don't know if that's to like make themselves feel tougher than they are or what, but I mean, bodybuilding is hard, and I will say my preps last year versus the first year that I did it were much harder, but there were a lot of other factors that played into that. Like 2 weeks into my prep, I ended up 2 weeks into my 7 month prep, I should say, I broke my foot. So like dieting had to get a lot harder. Cardio got a lot harder. I had to like figure other things out with like my weightlifting. So it was a little bit harder for that reason. And I was a 7 month prep versus a 4 week prep. So that's a big difference. But like I said, I chose to do it. So people like to complain and to say it's much harder and more difficult and it's terrible and all this stuff. And I was just kind of like waiting for it, like my first and second preps. And I was like, it wasn't like how everyone was making it seem.
Is there any other kind of misconceptions about bodybuilding or bodybuilders or anything like that? When you first got into it, you were like thinking it was going to be one way and then it turned out like maybe completely the opposite?
For sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of those. I could literally make a list. But and now I'll probably ask you this question. Now, I think that um a lot of times when you think of bodybuilders, like if someone says I'm a bodybuilder, you automatically put them in this category of like bodybuilders. They do this, they do that, and they, they're strict on this. And it's like all of them are the same. They all struggle and they have the same amount of, strength and weaknesses, and it's all mental. And you just put them in this category. And I think it's, two bodybuilders are entirely different. Like their struggles might be different. And it's interesting when you're backstage, especially at regional shows versus national shows. At regional shows, you'll be backstage and you'll say, oh my goodness, like for me, I hadn't had a free meal in a year or year and a half or something like that. And someone was, that I was very proud of that I stuck to my diet. And, some people are also like, oh yeah, no, it was such a hard prep. And, I was so proud of myself. I only cheated one time this week. And this week I really stuck to it. I only cheated one time. And it's like, everybody's so different with it. So I think putting, like you say, you're a bodybuilder, putting somebody in like a category of like they're all the same in that way, I think that's a big misconception. Like people think that you're all like doing the same type of thing or eating the same thing or I think that a lot of people think that we're all the same in that way. And now let me ask you, would you, like, if you think bodybuilder, would you think that everybody's kind of put in like the same category, or would you say that you think that people kind of like talking to different people, you would say that they're a little bit different in different ways?
Before this podcast started, I would definitely have like more of a preconceived notion, like a very stereotypical this, and this, kind of like you were saying. But talking to so many different bodybuilders, it's insane. Just like one person's a mom, one person's a single mom, one person's in college, one person is doing it, as a kind of a hobby, another person's doing it super serious, another person's traveling the country. Like there's so many different ages and occupations, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're kind of saying with like the seriousness of how serious they take it. It's almost crazy. Like you could, I mean, obviously you can, but like just before this, I would think, oh, if a bodybuilder was walking down the street, I could tell who they were. But now it's like anybody
Right.
could be a bodybuilder. It's.
Exactly.
I think that's part of the coolness of it too. Is like it's so accessible, and you don't have to like. I mean, obviously you have to commit to the sport and commit to the training and the diet, but you don't have to like be a certain age. You don't have to pass a certain test. You can just like be, try to be a bodybuilder and become a bodybuilder and do bodybuilding. It's not like, the NFL where it's so, exclusive. It's literally anybody
Right.
can try to do it and achieve really kind of pretty high status in it if they just work, and obviously genes have some to do with it and everything like that. But like, it's just open.
Right. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about bodybuilding, and I think it's a lot to do that not a lot of people know about the sport. You say, I do bodybuilding, and like if let's say I'm talking to one of my clients at work, I'm doing their hair, and I say I do bodybuilding, they think that means going to the gym. They think bodybuilding means simply building your physique. And essentially that is what it means, but they don't, like, there's a whole lot of layers to it. Getting on stage is not just going to the gym and then jumping on stage. There's a whole lot of things that are involved with it. And then, you kind of explain that you get on stage and like, oh, I've never even heard of that. And you might show them photos and they're like, oh, so you eat low carb? And I'm like, oh, definitely not. So I think there's a lot. I think it's also another way that you like go about it. Obviously, like getting stage lean and being like super low body fat, like pretty much no body fat, you can't say that that's healthy. So it's whenever you're in, you know, your contest prep, a lot of people reach out to me and say, I wish I could do that. Or, and it's like a lot of people look at it like you're the epitome of health. And it's kind of not really like that. Maybe in your off season when you're eating more and you're eating all the right things and you're taking all your vitamins and you're drinking all your water and you're doing a little bit of cardio, not too much, and kind of resting things a little bit more. Like sure, maybe at some points, but in contest prep, I wouldn't necessarily say it's healthy. So a lot of people look at it like it's very envious, but they also don't know that you can't really stay in that shape for a very long period of time.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. Um, like a lot of athletes, that's kind of the case. You kind of like you kind of sacrifice a little bit of your health for that moment, and it's kind of like a race who can kind of be there for the shortest amount of time to be back to get, better the next time. And then, you sacrifice a little bit of that again. And then it's kind of just this process. And it's with bodybuilding and powerlifting and, most sports, I would say, even the more common sports, basketball and football and baseball, your off season is really when you're making those gains and when you're probably, you're feeling the best, you don't have any injuries, or you're not adding to the injuries at least. And, I think that's one misconception about sports in general, like you're saying, is like they see these guys or these women and they think, oh, they must be so healthy, but
Hmm.
they're really dealing with a lot when it comes to, injuries and food restriction and water restriction, or working out on injuries, like things like that, like I said,
Absolutely.
most people just don't kind of take into consideration. Um,
Yes.
but you kind of mentioned like that side of it. You kind of mentioned like the diet side of it and how it's kind of sometimes hard, or it was at least at the beginning. How do you work through periods, or do you have periods whenever you just feel like you might be getting burnt out or you're feeling burnt out? Does that ever happen?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I mean, there's most people will say like, some days I don't feel like it. Well, today I didn't feel like it. That's everybody, even bodybuilders, me, your next door neighbor, anybody. Everybody doesn't feel like it on a lot of days. So, you could say that, you can get burnt out, every week, maybe Monday, you didn't feel like it. So you just got to go anyway. And I think that, um, knowing that by you going today and tomorrow and the next day, it's only going to be good for you. It's only going to benefit you, and it's only going to drive you towards your goals. And I will say, after, I prepped for 7 months, I was really going for my pro card, and I was very close to it. It was my first go around of doing all the national shows, and I did two of them, and I placed better at the second one than I did the first one, which was good. But I didn't get my pro card. I was a couple spots away. But after that show, I felt very defeated. I felt very tired and burnt out. I had a lot of injuries. My foot was not healing. I broke my foot 7 months prior to that, and it was not feeling good. And I had a lot of back issues and things. And I was like dieting for so long. I felt exhausted. I felt tired. And the last place I wanted to go to was the gym. So um, I, I wouldn't say that, sometimes people have to push through that, and then sometimes you don't. I think it depends on like how you're actually feeling. I think for me, I kind of fell out of love with bodybuilding at that moment. I think the last 4 weeks of prep, I like questioned if I even wanted to step on stage. But I already like, lined everything up. I already kind of paid for everything. My sponsors paid for everything. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my best. And I ended up doing pretty well at that one. So I was proud of myself. But after that, I told myself, I was like, I'm going to take a break. And that doesn't mean like stop everything. It just means that instead of not having any free meals and training 7 days a week and doing 55 minutes of cardio every single day, I was going to go to the gym and think, what do I want to do today? And kind of just do that. And then, stick to a meal plan, and then have one free meal a week, two if I felt like it, but not be super strict to where I felt like I was going to lose my mind. And I did that for about a month. And I'm not going to lie, I felt so incredibly lost from not like feeling like I wasn't a bodybuilder for a month. And I got right back into it. Not to say that I was more motivated than ever right after that month, but I knew I was like, I really badly want to get my pro card. Like, I want to compete as a pro and be great as a pro. And I'm not going to do that by going to the gym and doing what I feel like, because bodybuilding is not like that. You don't get to go to the gym and say, I feel like doing shoulders today. You can't do that. You got to stick with the program that your coach gives you. So, I got back with the coach and got back on a strict meal plan, and I got back to the gym and did exactly what I was supposed to do to make the progress needed. Did my check-ins every week, and got back to it. And I'm not going to say I felt like it then. I didn't really feel like it doing that then, but I think eventually I did wake up each day and it was easier and it was better. And I was like, I'm glad that several months ago I got back into it 100%. And I was like fully doing it, because I think if I look back at that time and I spent more than a month of not like making the most progression possible, I would have been very upset with myself, and I would have questioned stepping on stage here in a few months.
Yeah. I kind of had a similar experience and I definitely didn't go 7 months. I didn't go anything that long, but doing
Yeah.
doing 75 hard and having those what is that, like 2.5 months of doing this kind of the same routine or the same habits on a daily basis, it kind of felt so weird after those 75 days were up and I was like, all right, let's not do. I did some of those same things because some of those I was already doing, but like it felt almost like you said, it was like, what what's the, like, what am I supposed to be doing, almost like what's the
Right.
purpose, what should I be doing? I felt almost like I was slacking off, even though really I wasn't. In a
Mm-hmm.
way, I was just, it was so weird how on that first day after it was over, I woke up and I knew it was over, but for some reason my brain was still telling me to do these certain things. And
Hmm.
it's so weird. I really enjoy not doing them. And at the same time, it was almost like I didn't enjoy it. It was just like
Yeah.
it was a mental
Guilt.
battle. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of like guilt and at the same time relief. And it was a weird combo of the two feelings.
Yes, that's exactly how I felt. What now? Explain to me, what is 75 hard? Because I've heard of that, but I'm not familiar with it.
So it's a series of things you have to do on a daily basis. You do two 45-minute workouts. One has to be outside. You can't drink. You have to stick to a diet, whatever diet you choose. Um, you have to drink a gallon of water a day, and then you have to read 10 pages a day.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, I have heard of that. I think I knew a lot of people doing it. I don't think I know anybody that actually completed it.
It's not as so much hard like on a daily basis, but it's hard because like life happens and someday it's like, oh wow, I have to do my workout now and you just have to like figure it out. Or
Yeah.
I really don't feel like, I had a long day and I didn't get my reading when I wanted to, so I have to read 10 pages before bed and I'm tired.
Yeah.
One time I literally missed drinking my water, so I had to restart. I missed drinking by like a few ounces, like 10 ounces or something. Just fell asleep before. I had it sitting on the counter and I fell asleep. I forgot. So it's just the tediousness. It's the, you
Hmm.
know, it, it's 75 hard. Like I figured out the hard really does mean like you stick to it very hard. Like it's not that it's that hard. It's just like you got to stick to it and stick to it
Yeah.
hard. It's
Means 110% every day. I
definitely,
think
it's
that's kind of cool. Honestly, that sounds like a little piece of bodybuilding. And like you said, you know, some days you'd wake up and like life would get in your way kind of thing. It's like, I know some days, I usually during prep, I'd wake up, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I get up at 2:30. I do whatever it takes to get my workout in and make sure that I make the most of that day. And if that means getting up when people usually go to bed, that's what I do. So I would do that. But sometimes, let's say like you actually sleep through your alarm, because I mean, that happens. You still got to figure it out. So, like, if I'm supposed to go to bed at a certain time and I got to go work out instead, and then, it messes up my whole day, no matter what, you got to get your workout in, you got to get your meals in, you got to get your water in, you got to do all the things. So, even though life can get in your way, like, you still got to do all the things.
right.
So that's actually a pretty cool program, the 75 hard. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it kind of is like the bodybuilding style of discipline or whatever you want to call it. Most people, probably most people in the bodybuilding world who are serious about it wouldn't say this, but like a lot of people would just oftentimes say, have just a little drink, or you can, does it really matter if you get the full thing, or like if you do a full 45-minute outside, or if you do whatever, but like, it comes down to, I think in life, a lot of times, whether it's fitness or your job or whatever, just doing everything how you think and how you should do it. It comes down to just like actually doing it. It's so much easier to cut corners, but like I don't think you're gonna get the full benefit that way.
Right. No, that sounds exactly like me. Like I say the same exact thing. And people do say that. They're like, I don't know how you can stick to that diet plan or to working out like that every day. I could never do that. And I always say you're not going to do it because you just said that you're not going to do it. So if you say that you're going to do it, you're going to do it. I mean, it doesn't take a magical person to do bodybuilding or to do the 75 hard or to work a certain job. You just have to tell yourself that you're going to do all the things that's needed. And
Right.
it's every single day, no matter what. If it's 45 minutes of cardio, you're doing 45, not 44, not 40, not 50, 45. You just got to do exactly what's on your plan. And it's really like, I don't want to say it's not hard, but it's not really, like you just stick to it. And after a while, it's your lifestyle.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely it's not complicated. You just do what's on the sheet for the day and then it's over.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes it's actually easier that way. Like I think if I was trying to progress, with my physique and I was trying to figure out a meal plan and do all this and like figure out what I need to train, I would just like I wouldn't know where to start, you know? So like I think having a coach and having somebody that says, do exactly this, I'm like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to think about that. I already know I'm going to make great progress because all I have to do is follow what he says to do. And that's it. He does the hard part. I just have to follow it.
yeah, no, that's so true. Like the knowledge and the information behind what you do, it really should be the hardest part, but just the human element of actually doing it and getting it done, that's really where everything lies. What would almost the human potential be? I think that's what is so interesting about bodybuilding and athletics in general, is like you kind of get to almost get a peek of what the human potential is a little bit more than just kind of the average day to day. You know,
For
it's
sure.
definitely a physical peak, but it's also I think a mental side too, because it takes, I think it is like the cliche, it's 99% mental. I think it really is though.
No, it definitely is. And you're exactly right. I think that's why I love bodybuilding so much because you can see yourself at your very, very best. Like you can see yourself at your full potential. And then not only that, you can do better than that. And you do better than that as long as you follow the plan. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people say like they could never do it. And it's like, they walk in the gym and they're like, I just don't even know what to do. Like I walk in there and I just, I do a couple machines and I just really get discouraged and unmotivated and I walk out and I'm like, really, like I think the key like to my success and, my physique, my bodybuilding and progressing and all that is really just having a coach, like keeping me not only accountable, but telling me exactly what to do to make the best progression possible. So I think I don't go into the gym and think, what do I want to do? I go into the gym, I'm like, okay, coach says this, this, and this, and that's what I'm doing. I just kind of like robotically go in there and do what's needed and get out. I think if I didn't have a plan and I was just like, what do I feel like doing? When I did that for a month, I was like, I don't know. Honestly, I feel like going home, So like, what's
Yeah.
the point of being here? So I think having a plan is really the key.
Yeah. It is. It's very important, that plan. And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but whenever you have the opportunity to kind of see what you can do and then go past that, setting a goal, it's almost a scary place because you want to achieve that goal. But then if you feel yourself like achieving it, you think, well, I could do more. Does that ever like, do you ever have that thought, I can do more, but just imagining what it's going to take, like the daily actions that it's going to take to actually do more. Does that ever kind of like weigh on your mind at all? Like, okay, I've reached this certain point. I didn't think I could get there. I got there. Now I have to set the bar higher. Does that ever almost like scare you a little bit?
Yeah, sometimes I would definitely say so. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody, they came in to get their hair done and they said they had met me in the gym and I probably was like all like I was deep into prep and they said that they were asking me like what it should feel like to make progression. And I said, whenever you get to your last rep, do three more. And she was like, that was pretty interesting. And I think that that's what it takes as long as you're pushing yourself to the limit. And I think that that's such a cliche thing to say, but at the same time, like once you're done, do another one. If you did another one, then do another one. And if you did that one, then do another one and do it until like, let's say you're doing shoulder press. Let's just do it until, the weights don't go up anymore. So just do it to absolute failure. And if you're doing that, then you're going to make progress. As long as you're doing your absolute best, um, the progress will come and your goals will, they will be, they're right in front of you. So you just reach for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that idea of like figuring out where someone's limits are, if you figure out where your limits are, it's so empowering because like this is where I stand right now. If I do this work, it should, and it, most likely will push me to be able to do more. And I think so many people go into the gym and they don't progress because they don't push themselves. They don't find that limit. It's easy to
Right.
do, 3 sets of 10 for the same weight for, 6 months because that's what your body's used to. But, finding that pain point, if you want to call it that, like you said, that's where you actually grow. It's not from that comfort zone.
Yeah, no, you have to. I mean, every day that you walk in the gym, if you're trying to progress, you got to step way outside of your comfort zone. It's definitely like a growing pain type of feeling, like that burn feeling, and then going way past that. And then, like, your face getting all red and your muscles getting red and you're sweating and you're grunting. Like, that's definitely an uncomfortable feeling, but that's something that you have to do, if you want to progress. Like, it's very uncomfortable, but you just got to get used to that.
So you mentioned kind of like that Monday morning feeling, and a lot of people say, "I'll start on Monday." It's Thursday. I'll just wait till Monday, and then it's raining on Monday, so Tuesday's a better day for them anyway. So they'll start on Tuesday. How
Right.
do you have any actual like strategies you use? Do you do like a fancy alarms, double alarm, or do you do like a motivational video or song on a, a normal basis? Or do you have any kind of like motivational strategies to get you through those kind of like downtimes a little bit?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, um, I don't have this anymore, but I used to have an alarm ringtone that was like just a fun song, like the Pina Colada song.
Yeah.
I used to have that as my alarms in the morning. So I would wake up to that and it would just make me happy every day. But obviously, like at 3 in the morning, that's not, you don't want to hear anything at 3 in the morning. But honestly, I heard, it was like a YouTube video. I forget the girl's name, but I watched the YouTube video and she said, um, in the morning, but when you're waking up and your alarm's going off, you don't feel like getting out of bed, count down from 5. And before you get to 1, you need to get out of bed because after the 5 seconds goes away after your alarm went off, your mind comes into play and you start thinking, this bed feels good. I want to stay in this bed. I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to go do all those things. So just saying like 5, 4, 3, and you're like, okay, I got to get up, and just getting up before that 2, 1 comes is very important because then you're not thinking about staying in bed. You're like, okay, I got to get up.
I think we're just so creative when it comes to how we can make things easier on ourselves. If we use that same
Right.
creativity for something, more productive, we would be, doing ourselves a favor.
Yeah, there's so many things. I think every single time like I don't feel like getting out of bed and I'm counting down, I'm thinking about, my next show or work and what I want to do for work because I have a lot of work goals as well. And if I don't get out of bed and go start my day off right by going to the gym, my day is not going to be as good of a day even at work too. Like I feel like when I start my day off early in the morning and I go to the gym and I do things for me and I focus on, progressing in, the world of bodybuilding and my physique, it progresses like throughout the entire day. Like my whole day is productive. I go and I'm like ready for the day and, I feel very accomplished. I'm like, okay, I did cardio, I did shoulders, I did glutes, I did, my stretches, I did my posing. It's only like 8 a.m. and I feel really good about that. And I'm like, when I'm in bed and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I know I'm going to feel great when I get out of bed. So, and it always works. And I think another key to getting out of bed is also going to bed on time. A lot of people, I feel like, either like don't get enough sleep or sleep way too much. Like people will sleep, they'll pretty much sleep their life away. And I think that there's something to be said about that as well. I think that, too much sleep is like, you could be doing something else with your day. And I think that I feel just lazy, just laying in bed for too long.
You kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but how do you think, and is it having a coach? Is it experience? How do you think you find that balance between knowing when to say, okay, my brain's actually right this time. I need to maybe take a second and step back.
I am the worst at that. I will push things like way too far with that. And actually I that's something I personally really need to work on. I'm the type of person who needs to be told to hold back versus push further. So like if I like need to take a rest day, like somebody really has to like like hold me down to like do that. Like I have a really hard time resting and not pushing things too far. So I am probably not the right person to ask that question to, but um, I I think that my coach is also he's a he's a very hard coach. Like he's very serious. I mean, we joke around and stuff. Like he's fun to be around, but he's very serious. Like he wants me to train a lot. He has me doing a lot of cardio. My preps are very, very harsh. So, and I personally like that. Like I like it being hard because I know that I'm going to make really good progress. I feel very confident about how my physique is going to look when I step on stage. But as far as like taking days off and resting and taking a step back, that's the thing that I probably have the hardest time with.
Yeah, I think so many people, competitors and people who are serious about it, that's probably one of the biggest struggles because they don't want to see from the mental aspect. They think, I can't take this day off. I need to improve. I think it's one of the biggest struggling points for a lot of people in that competitive realm. It's almost like it's hard to find a good balance for anyone. Some people are too much rest, too much, like that. And then some people are like, go, 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 go.
That's one reason why I like my coach so much, because he does push me really, really hard, and I like being pushed really hard. Um, I think the only way that I would feel comfortable taking like a rest day or like a rest period or something like that is if he told me to. If he said, "Okay, you really need to take a week off," I would be like, "Okay," and I would actually take the week off and do exactly what he said. If he said literally like sit on the couch and like chill, I would be comfortable doing that, but only if he said that. So if I chose it on my own, I'd feel like I'm like missing out on progress. I would feel very guilty not going to the gym. So I think only he could tell me to do that and make me feel good about it. But so far, I have been coached by him for over a year, and I have not heard anything about resting. So I guess maybe he thinks I don't need it. And it's funny because my boyfriend calls me the little engine that could, because I just keep going and going and going. I'm very much like the go 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 type of personality.
I think it kind of goes back to what you're saying about give me a plan to follow. And if you do follow that plan, then he's probably built in that, that rest that you're not necessarily seeing as rest, but your body, gets to experience it a little bit. Do you have any like recovery methods or anything that you feel like helps you recover? Obviously sleep's important, but do you use any like supplements or do you do any like cold showers or anything like that?
Not necessarily. I definitely make sure that I get enough sleep. Sleep is very important with recovery. I have a few like pre-existing injuries with like low back and like sciatica, and um, I have a torn labrum right now, but it doesn't necessarily like stop me from doing things. But I will say, like, I do like my physical therapy exercises and my stretches, and like because of the injuries that I have, it's pretty much like stretching a lot of my body. So I think that stretching is really good for recovery. I feel a lot better if I do my exercise and my stretches and stuff for my physical therapy versus like let's say I don't one day, the next day I feel much tighter and I feel worse. Epsom salt baths are really nice, just because I feel like they're very relaxing. Like for me, and I know a lot of bodybuilders have issues with like sitting back and chilling and relaxing, and that kind of forces you to like chill and just like kind of be there and not have to do anything at that moment. But as far as supplements, um, I'm not really a supplement type of person. I take some and I take the ones that like my coach has me take, but usually it's mostly just like vitamins, like multivitamin and vitamin C and probiotic and stuff like that. But I don't really take a ton of supplements necessarily. A lot of us like run around and work. A lot of us work multiple jobs, or a lot of them are trainers or coaches, or they own a gym or something. So they're always running around doing a whole bunch of things, and then you're training on top of that. We do a lot. So that little like 10 minutes, or some people take an hour to take their bath. It really means a lot to us, but it's also really good for our recovery as well.
So, in this world of bodybuilding, when you have to be so strict on training and diet, and it's such a mental battle, and you're competing and things like that, what do you think you have learned really about yourself in the last couple of years of doing this?
There's definitely like a level of confidence that I did not know that I could possess. And I think that I found it from honestly stepping on stage. And I think that's a big reason why I love it so much. I would do like photo shoots and stuff prior to me bodybuilding, but it was kind of me like faking the confidence. Like I would try to act like I am, but I felt like a little bit uncomfortable. I think just because I didn't really like truly love myself before. And I think that after doing bodybuilding and seeing not only like the physical side of how I could push myself, but like the mental side as well. And then, I'd never been on stage before in front of an audience, and getting on stage in like a little swimsuit. I would, I could just like be on up there, and anybody could be out in the audience, and I didn't care. And I just felt like my true self, and I felt very confident. And I think that level of confidence has, um, shaped like who I am in every aspect of my life. Like with my job, I feel more confident with it, just because I feel like, you know how to do this, like just go and do it. And, I think that people can see that, they can feel that. And um, that level of confidence is something that, I'm very glad that I have possessed that at this point.
The very physical, especially from the outside looking in, physical journey and physical challenge that is bodybuilding and powerlifting and anything really fitness and body related. It almost strengthens your mind, if not as much, maybe even more. It gives you so many different character qualities that transfer outside of that little realm that you kind of develop them in. What kind of advice would you have for people though who are looking to get into a more just active life in the, upcoming year and actually stick with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, first of all, the thing about what you said about Mondays, don't ever start on Monday, because if you say that, it's never going to happen. Start today, like literally just like start right now. Like what's holding you back? Um, Stay consistent with it. If you don't see results in 2 weeks, just know that I didn't either. I didn't either. I didn't see it until, a long time after I started. And it wasn't like, even when I stepped on stage, I saw a decent amount, but it really wasn't until, a year, and then 2 years. And, it takes a very long time. So be patient. Don't continue to look in the mirror and expect to see changes every single day. Even, after weeks, if I check in, from 6 weeks ago to now, like I might not see anything. And it's not that the changes aren't happening. It's just that like you're in a spot right now that, you need to keep going to where you can get where you need to be. So stay consistent, but also, push yourself to that limit, to that uncomfortable spot. Like don't be comfortable with where you're at. You should really be pushing yourself, like with your nutrition. Try to be better with that. If you cheated one week, or if you did something off plan, don't beat yourself up over it. Just get right back on track. A lot of people do it. It's totally normal. We're all human, so it happens. And just continue to be as consistent as possible. And I think the biggest thing is just stop making all the excuses. And we could all make 10 excuses to why we can't go to the gym tomorrow, or how we shouldn't. But the reality is we all have the same 24 hours. So it's really like what you're making out of it. And some people just have different priorities. You just got to weigh out what your priorities are. Is it to look in the mirror and feel better about yourself, or is it to hang out with your friends at the bar? So you just got to weigh out your priorities and what you want to do with your life.
If you want to share any social media or website or anything like that, that'd be cool.
My Instagram handle is just Melanie Neutz. So it's spelled Melanie Neutz. And then my Facebook is actually the same. And
Gotcha.
that's all that I have as far as social media.
Gotcha.